Hi, everyone. My name is Danielle Jezienicki. I'm the Director of Sustainability for Grove Collaborative, and I'm so honored to be with you today to talk about sustainability in the pet world. I've put some slides together, so just bear with me while we manage this virtual world a little longer, and hopefully you can see my slides here. As I mentioned, Grove Collaborative is a retailer of sustainable home essentials that span everything from personal care to pet care. We believe that consumer products should be a force for human and environmental health rather than a drain on our natural resources. We both create our own products that are Grove co-branded and some other owned brands, as well as carry third-party brands you may have heard of, all the way from Shameless Pets and Westpaw to Seventh Generation and Method. So we're really a robust marketplace focused on sustainability. We are also a pet-friendly office. I don't personally have a dog because I have young children, and people who have both, I think, are very brave. But this is our team dog, Ruby, who is our office dog. And I do dog sit her. She's the reason we love to go into work, because we get hugs from Ruby. So hopefully that will win me some trust. I am a dog person, even if not a dog. So what I'm going to talk to you today about is our approach to sustainability. I want to share with you our journey to be plastic free, our roadmap, and then talk a little bit about a brand we just launched in the pet industry, our considerations for getting into the pet industry and how we could bring a sustainable focus there. And then also think, bigger picture, what are the issues for your industry? So the theme of this year's report was, what does it mean to be a sustainable company? We hear this word sustainability all the time, and how do we really know if we're doing enough? This idea came to me just kind of scrolling through LinkedIn. You hear all this great news about sustainability, this and these, great commitments, and we're doing so much good. But then you kind of look around and you see the status quo around the world, where we are on climate. And then you ask yourself, where is this disconnect? When does it, how do we know that we're doing enough? So we set out in this year's report to ask ourselves some really hard questions about what does it mean to be a sustainable company? How can we measure whether our business is a force for good? And some other questions that we'll go through today. But why do we care so much about plastic? How can we decouple our carbon footprint from our growth? So does it mean that in order to keep growing, we need to keep emitting more carbon? How can we empower our customers? That's really one that's close to our hearts, is how can we exist as a force for positive impact in our customers' lives, to be a solution for them to live more planet-friendly lives and bring safe products home. And so these are some of the questions we set out. One thing I like to talk about is thinking about sustainability 1.0 to 2.0. So I think we're still really in the sustainability 1.0 framework of doing less bad, where we run our business on one hand and we try to make a positive impact on the other. So we go and we plant trees, or we pick up plastic, and we're really in that paradigm too. I don't mean to suggest that Grove is not. That's really where we are, I think, as a society. And so what we're moving into, and we see small examples of this happening, is sustainability 2.0, doing more good. How can sustainability really be that engine for not only business growth, but also positive impact? So when you buy, the hope is that we create products that when you buy them, they do make a positive impact. So one example is our Seedling line of tree-free paper products. So Seedling is made of FSC, which is Forest Stewardship Council. So FSC certified bamboo. So fast-growing, tree-free, and when we purchases of Seedling also contribute to our goal to plant 1 million trees with Arbor Day. So Seedling is a nice example of regenerating forests, protecting forests versus cutting them down. And even if a lot of the paper companies are, going and planting trees. So that's kind of an example of how we think about sustainability at a big picture, really trying to make our business a force for positive impact. We are a public benefit corporation. And we are also a certified B Corporation. I know some of you are, so congratulations. That's a really big milestone. I won't read through all these slides. This is in our sustainability report, but I just want to show you how we think about our goals. So we really think about the areas. There's a concept in sustainability called materiality, and that means, where do you have the biggest impact? What is the topic that is most meaningful to your business? So for us, sure, carbon is important, climate is important, but we're a relatively small company. We don't own our own facilities. We don't own our own delivery trucks. So we only have so many ways to decrease our carbon footprint right now. Whereas we are a company in the retail world, in the consumer packaged good world, which means we sell a tremendous amount of plastic. Most of our products are packaged in plastic. So if we are going to take on an issue, plastic is going to be our issue. Same thing with reforestation. The consumer packaged goods industry uses a lot of fiber. And so how can we really set up our supply chain to showcase a way where sustainability boosts our business, kind of aligns with our business? Chemicals is a really important topic we'll talk a little bit more about. And then sourcing from Black-owned businesses, making representation more common in the natural products industry, making our products more accessible. That's something we've been thinking a lot about too. So these are our goals. This is all in our annual sustainability report. And I'll talk through some of these in more detail. Primarily, I'll talk about plastic today and our journey around plastic, but I'll touch on some of the other topics. So why do we care so much about plastic? The issue with plastic is that we never asked for packaging to last 500 years. It just seems that everything comes that way. So our industry really has been built on the back of single-use, seemingly disposable plastic. So you use it, you throw it away. The reality is there is no place to throw something away. It's around forever. We have been kind of led to believe this myth that products get recycled, which is also not entirely true. A really small percentage of everything gets recycled. And the types of plastics that get recycled are limited, really primarily number 1 and 2 plastics. So for us to be a sustainable company, but to make our products entirely in plastic just didn't align. It didn't feel right. So we knew that this was going to be a topic that we had to address meaningfully. Single-use plastic could not be something that we depend on in order to run and grow our business if we're to call ourselves a sustainable business. Plastic has been the issue that we've taken on because it really is our chance to change the industry. We are small, but we feel we're not too small to change our industry, especially considering the fact that a lot of the brands we sell on our platform are owned by much larger companies. So if we can provide a marketplace that showcases that consumers are not only ready for, but also demanding plastic-free solutions, we believe that will be a really powerful signal to the industry that consumers are ready for change, solutions are available, and where they're not, we need to come together and push for those. So our journey on the plastic is to be plastic-free by 2025. We are definitely not there yet. If we could be there, we would have done it. It's really difficult, and we don't totally know how we're going to get there. We don't have alternatives for things like sprayers and pumps, and we're not in the food business, so that's a much more difficult topic. So we set this goal because it was difficult, because we did not know how we would get there, but because we felt that it was necessary to really push our industry forward. And our progress has been remarkable. So we started publishing on a biannual basis our plastic footprint, and I'll show some slides really showing how transparent we are. But we are making real progress here. So this commitment and the fact that it's so bold and so ambitious has really become a rallying cry for our company and helped us centralize and align around this one issue of being plastic free. And it's something that really comes out for our consumers too as a pain point for them, as they look in their trash and recycle bins and see things filling up with single-use plastic. So this is really an issue that we've taken on because it really impacts our business. So how do we get there? What's our plan? So we announced this in 2020, early March, thankfully, the last few days before we could talk about anything but COVID. And so what we announced then was that we were the first company, or the first marketplace rather, to be entirely plastic neutral. So as of January 1st, 2020, we have collected the equivalent amount of plastic that we have shipped to our customers. So if we ship our customers 100 pounds of plastic packaging, that means that we are going to collect 100 pounds of plastic packaging. So that we felt it's a similar approach to carbon offsets for those who are familiar with those, that because we know we're making a negative impact by using plastic, we don't have a way out of it right now, kind of immediately. So we want to kind of take responsibility. And really, the idea is to tax ourselves for our use of plastic. So we measure our plastic, we add it up, and we know the cost of collecting it. So by continuing to use plastic, we have to kind of acknowledge the fact that there is no way to get rid of this plastic, and we're responsible to continue to collect it as long as we ship it out. So that's been a really phenomenal program. We've collected millions and millions of tons of plastic to date since 2020. And so this is an important kind of stepping stone to say, we're not just going to sit around until 2025 innovating our products. We're really committed to making this happen, and we're going to put some skin in the game. So that's an important part of our journey to plastic free. Plastic free is what's ahead. I think right now you'll see on our website, we have a growing assortment of plastic free products. And then we have a growing assortment of almost plastic free products. And those to me reflect really the best available solution. So I mentioned a spray bottle, for example. We have a glass refillable spray bottle. It has a silicone sleeve and a sprayer. You get a cleaning concentrate that's a small glass bottle, and then you fill the rest with water. So we've been able to decrease the materials used, the water we ship around, which decreases our carbon footprint. And we've just moved away from this model of single-use plastic. However, the sprayer is still plastic. We need a solution for that. So I mention it as we're not perfect, we're on our way, we're transparent, we acknowledge our industry needs to move forward, but we are excited about the progress that we've made. And so this, I mentioned, we publish our plastic footprint. So this is on our website. You can see our sustainability report and our plastic footprint. The way we did this is we measured every single one of our products. If you're a brand that sells on Grove, we ask you for your plastic data when you launch a new SKU, and we collect and aggregate the plastic data to figure out what is our plastic footprint? How much plastic are we shipping to customers? What is our percent of products in our assortment that are plastic free? So there are a lot of dimensions of progress here. It's not just pure plastic free as the only thing we consider progress. So we track progress a lot of different ways, including with our own brands. We hold ourselves, I would say, to a higher standard to meet that goal more quickly. And these are the ways that we track our progress completely transparently about how much progress we are making towards that goal. So we're not only trying to eliminate plastic, we're also trying to reduce plastic, move into recycled plastic, and obviously reuse and refill is a big component too. So as of this year, we won't be launching any SKUs that don't have any recycled content. And we're not monitoring what percent of recycled content. We trust that our brands, are motivated here, and they've been phenomenal partners to us. But the idea is that we just, we need to make some progress towards this goal, and recycled plastic as an interim solution, as at least acknowledging, a step that we're moving in this direction. This is a little more detail on repurpose. This is from our impact report that was published this summer. So the numbers are a little outdated. We've collected much more since then. But this is how much plastic we've collected through Plastic Bank was the partner we started with. And now we're working with Repurpose Global, who's been a great partner. We've focused with them because they're really collecting low value plastics, the type of wrappers and kind of little bags and that are more likely to deteriorate and turn into real pollution versus a focus on recycling. So the other thing we're doing, which I'm excited about, is we've started to work with Repurpose because we're committed to plastic neutral, because we can forecast for the most part, how much we'll be spending on plastic for the year, is we've started to invest in capital infrastructure. So that means that if we pay to set up a new facility that can help plastic be processed, that means that additional brands can come on and have this, and they can collect more plastic. So it really kind of increases the whole capacity of the industry for plastic collection. So we're really excited about the progress we've been making there. And we've launched in Colombia too. So we're now in the Americas as well as Southeast Asia and India. And the reason these countries are so important is that a lot of the US recycling gets shipped overseas. So it's not, that we're just trying to pick up trash in another part of the world. This is a mess that ultimately US consumers have a big hand in creating. A little image of some of our products and how much plastic has been avoided. I mentioned the glass concentrates. So part of our journey towards plastic free is replacing packaging. Part of it is reimagining products, and we'll talk about that in a little more detail. But to show you here, these are some concentrated cleaners that, rather than shipping, a whole spray bottle, single-use plastic full of liquid, will just ship you the concentrate. You have the reusable bottle, and you have the whole system at home. So the only thing we need to move around is that little glass bottle. And you can see some of the refillable glass containers. That's a collaboration with Jeremiah Brent, which is really beautiful. And we just launched a new one a few weeks ago. And then on the right, you'll see our Peach Knot plastic line, which is our plastic-free personal care and hair care. And we'll talk about that, but that's been a really exciting innovation as well. So how do you get to plastic-free? What does the journey look like? So we've tried to break down the steps to become as digestible as possible. And this is all included in our sustainability report. We're happy to make it public and be totally open source here. But the first kind of talking through our journey, step one is the strategic intent. And it was so important for us that our CEO was involved and, really passionate about this, because taking on a big sustainability goal is difficult. There are no shortage of obstacles and no shortage of people who will ask you, what about this? What about this? And so to have really kind of the wind of the company leadership behind you is really important in setting an ambitious goal. So I think that was something that really helped us stand up and say proudly, this is what we're doing. And so then you kind of set on this long journey that will detail of like what's next really, and just breaking apart little pieces. So the way we break it down is into phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and those are in order of available solutions and complexity. So phase 1, this is phase 0, getting started. This kind of talks about just the organization, the data collection. Let's say you set a plastic-free goal. So this is really you've now set the goal, and you're kind of getting ready to get into setting up a system for how you'll measure this, how you'll report on this. So this is really a lot of housekeeping organization, getting a list of your SKUs ready, figuring out where is our plastic, how do we know where plastic exists in our products, how will we measure it, how to, kind of what systems do we have, and how will we start to keep track of them. There's a lot of education that goes on at this phase of like what counts as plastic. We have that conversation all the time as it comes to new materials. And then starting to talk about organizational commitments and conversations with suppliers. This is kind of the behind the scenes, like getting ready to set a goal work, getting everything ready to go. And again, this is all public on our sustainability report. So I welcome you to dig in. I hope this is a helpful resource. So as I mentioned, the phases are organized by complexity and availability of alternative solutions. So phase 1 is really kind of the lowest hanging fruit if you think about it. So for us, that's moving from the same format product. So let's say hand soap. We make the same hand soap, but instead of packaging it in plastic, we'll now package it in aluminum, which is a more commonly recycled material across the US. It's infinitely recyclable. And again, it is plastic free or nearly plastic free. I know there's no such thing as truly plastic free when you think about a liner, if anyone's in the weeds on packaging, as I've learned all the wonderful intricacies of how ubiquitous plastic really is in our lives. So thinking about available alternatives is the first step. And this is where a lot of our brand partners is thinking about including recycled content if you are still in plastic, reducing unnecessary packaging, so even just decreasing the plastic that you're using, and thinking about transitioning into types of plastic that are more commonly recyclable. For example, number 1 and 2 bottles, mono materials that are more likely to be recycled. Sometimes you have, if you have different types of plastic and they all get thrown into the recycle bin together, the whole thing will end up in landfill because they can't separate it. So just kind of thinking about end of life more meaningfully. And so that's really moving into what already exists. The other thing we did at this phase was we launched a plastic working group. So we have 80 plus brands now that we work with, we sell on our site, and they are, we didn't want to tell them plastic free 2025, go. See you then. We really, really work closely with them to go along this path together, to share resources, to share challenges, to share best practices. And that's been a phenomenal resource, I think, for us. We've learned a lot from our brands. Hopefully they've learned from us, but we've really enjoyed it. And it continues to meet several times a quarter, I would say. And then the other part of this is starting to lean on our advocacy. We're not a company that has been comfortable kind of taking political stances necessarily. And so this is somewhere where we said, we can only do so much on our own. We really need national support on better recycling infrastructure, on better collection, and even on taxing, use of single-use plastic on companies that aren't making these goals that we do, or just having them consider their use of materials. So, kind of thinking about how policy is really important to help move packaging along to where we feel it needs to be. So thinking about that. And then the phase 2 is new formats and behaviors. So I think this is the point. Phase 2 is where now our Grove Co brands are really getting into phase 2. So that's thinking about completely new form factors for products. So our peach nut plastic is a good example. So instead of a liquid shampoo that comes in a single-use plastic bottle, you use it, you throw it away or recycle it. Instead, you get a bar entirely plastic-free. The packaging is FSC certified paper. And we've just completely reformatted the product. And ideally, there is no trade-off in performance. And that's why, we innovated for so long around peach to make sure that it really hit the standard that we needed it to hit, so that that performance and quality and effectiveness weren't sacrificed. So that is a big part of it. Consumer behavior change is an important one. If you're going to change a format, what do you need your consumers to do to come along? And then starting to think more about end of life and take back. This is a really interesting topic right now. So you've probably heard a lot about circularity, which is a concept that means recovering of materials. So moving away from this take, make, dispose to a more circular economy, or a system where materials are brought into a product, used, and then at the end of use, they are brought back into that cycle. So material recapture. So we are thinking about, we've launched our first refill stations and are thinking hard about what circularity looks like for us and for our industry. And then I would say that circularity really gets into phase 3. But phase 3 is really designed for materials recovery. So once those systems exist, how can you design your products into those and really make packaging a force for good? So how can new materials and waste streams, carbon capture, how can that all be incorporated into the products and the materials we make? Really, I think kind of scaling circularity, avoiding landfill waste. This is, to me, like the really exciting future of sustainability. And I don't think that we're here yet at Grove. This isn't necessarily something we'll reach by 2025, although certainly start to make inroads too in the coming years. So I've mentioned Peach a few times. We have a detailed case study in our sustainability report, but I just wanted to give you a quick visual to show what the product looks like and why it was so important that it felt fun and accessible to our consumers. So shampoo bars have been around for a long time. If you are a sustainability early adopter like me, you will probably have washed your hair with some of them and felt like, that was like, I don't know, worse than hand soap or dish soap. Like there were some early versions that weren't so great. And so it was really important to us that Peach did not require that trade-off, that feeling that you were sacrificing a product you love for a product you didn't like, but you felt like you should be using. So Peach is meant to be really fun, a fun way to kick plastic out of the bathroom, accessible to everyone, all hair types and body types, and something that really consumers welcome. And so it's been a great success so far. It's been a media darling, as you can imagine, like the roundup of like plastic-free solutions. Like I think the fact that it's so accessible, it's so fun, it's bright and colorful. The brand itself is all about being upbeat and fun and accessible. So I think that's been a great example of innovating out of plastic into a way that doesn't feel like a sacrifice. And so moving away from plastic, I'll touch upon some of our sustainability initiatives just pretty quickly to kind of showcase the other commitments we made. So obviously moving out of plastic, you're moving into other materials. So you don't want to just go and cut down ancient forests instead of using plastic and say, oh, we're done. So obviously every material has trade-offs and it's important to consider those. So we've set a goal to plant 1 million trees. We're thinking now more about forest conservation instead of just replanting. How can we keep our forests intact? But we're also thinking a lot about the sustainability of our supply chain, making sure that we never source from places that threaten, compromised ecosystems. How can we empower our customers to lead healthier lives at home? This is really important, I think, a foundational value of Grove. We hear from our customers over and over again that they come to Grove for safety and for sustainability. So it's really important to us that our products do not contain any harmful chemicals and toxins, that meet a really high standard for transparency, disclosure, ethical supply chains, and of course, cruelty-free, never tested on animals. So that means we hold ourselves to a really high standard. And this is not the kind of thing we talk about a lot with consumers other than, our standard and the certifications, because once you get into chemicals, it's pretty complicated. So I think it's just really important for us to build trust and have all this information available and lean on our certification partners to showcase that we really are using the safest and highest third-party verification standards. These are some of the material certifications I mentioned that make sure that our supply chain is deforestation-free and kind of meets the highest standard of safety and environmental standards. And then thinking about growth. So, how can we decouple our growth from our carbon footprint? So this is a really interesting way to phrase carbon to me, because I think so often we talk about carbon emissions and our eyes kind of glaze over, right? We think invisible gases in the sky, how can I make a difference here? So it's really important to us that we think about, bringing our footprint down as our business grows. And so that's something that we're working on doing on our own, kind of in our own business. And we've also made it more customer facing. So we have an environmental impact shop where customers can add carbon offsets to their cart. And that's been performing really well. And then we also share totally transparently our offset projects, which are all focused on conserving forests, community-led projects, and areas where we need to keep our wild places intact. And then moving towards circular business models, another important way to decrease emissions, but these are our first refill stations. And so we're thinking about where else we can do that around the country. So something that's really exciting for the year ahead. And then making natural products more accessible, affordable, and available to all consumers. We've set goals around shelf space to BIPOC-owned brands, as well as purchasing from Black-owned brands, a goal which we far exceeded Alafia is a brand mentioned here. They have a fantastic supply chain story about sourcing responsibly the materials that they use in their products. So now to the part you've all been waiting for. What does sustainability mean? What does sustainability mean in the pet industry? So thinking about the launch of our own line, Good Fur, we had to bring the sustainability, the brand attributes, the pillars, the values of Grove into the pet space. And so for us, that meant obviously a focus on plastic and on packaging, and then also really transparent and safe ingredients. So I love this customer insight. I'll let you read it, and I'll take a sip of water. So our customers, as all of you, consider pets part of their family. Why would you hold your pets to a different standard than you hold your kids? So you want that same environmental positive outcome, and you also want to make sure that the products are safe and ethically sourced. And so you don't want to make a negative impact by purchasing something. So our Grove pet parents, the same values as the rest of our Grove customers, care about natural ingredients, care about sustainability, of course want high performance, there can be no trade-off, and then want to avoid plastic and seek natural ingredients. So this is Good Fur. This is our new line of pet grooming products. They feature plastic-free aluminum bottles with reusable pumps. They come in infinitely recyclable aluminum with how to recycle labels, and they're made with natural fragrances, organic products when we can, and always natural ingredients. Human grade and made without harsh chemicals. So it's really important that we keep to the same Grove standard and make sure that the products are safe for our furriest friends. Of course, cruelty-free. And then I just wanted to feature that also our third-party brands are doing really cool things in the pet space. So Good Fur is our own line, but we, as I mentioned, also carry third-party brands. And so here are some of my favorite examples from our site. But Chip-In helping solve the carp problem in the Great Lakes by turning that into treats. Shameless Pets using upcycled food, which is a huge source of methane emissions and a greenhouse gas contributor, to make into pet snacks. Jiminy's Cricket but insect-based protein, which is really important from a carbon standpoint to find alternative proteins that don't require land. And then the Sustainably Yours cat litter. I learned all about the sustainability of cat litter in preparing for this. And then on the toy side, West Pond Foggy Dog using recycled materials in their pet toys. So, and just in closing, I wanted to leave you with some questions of thinking about where plastic for Grove has been where we can make the biggest impact. But thinking about the pet industry, where are those topics where you can make the biggest impact? And how can you think about that same journey of where can your products be a force and an engine for positive impact? So thinking about really what goes in and what goes out, where are our products a drain on the environment and on the systems that we source from versus where can they start to be an engine for regeneration? So I came up with just some ideas that I could think of, but I think this is well worth a longer conversation in each of your companies. You're all the experts in your own businesses. Reducing emissions obviously is the biggest one, just protein being a source of carbon emissions. So how can we transition to plant-based protein? Jiminy was such a great example of insect-based protein, using food waste as an input, as Shameless did. And then, of course, reducing the emissions of manufacturing with renewable energy and emissions. And then the next step of reducing waste, another kind of logical one, but just really taking a hard look at packaging. What is unnecessary packaging? How can we transition into more commonly recyclable materials, mono materials? Just thinking about really kind of streamlining and lightweighting our packaging if we can. And then thinking about those opportunities for refill and reuse. So if you have, let's say with Good Fur, instead of continuing to ship products with a pump, can you just move to a refill model? Something simple like that. Recapturing waste, as we saw with some of those pet toys, but recycled and upcycled materials are a great input. Also can decrease the cost of goods. Excuse me. And then lastly, designing for reuse. I think this is a really important question of what parts of your product are going to landfill. Excuse me. If anything you sell is going to the landfill, excuse me, how can that be avoided and how can you design out of that? And who are your partners in solving that problem? So these are just some ideas. I'm so sorry. I think probably pet owners are luckier than parents in the way that pets don't get you sick the way little kids do. So I apologize for the never-ending cycle of colds we're dealing with here. But anyway, it's been a pleasure sharing our journey about sustainability and plastic with you at Grove. I hope these leave you with some ideas on how to innovate and some conversations you can take back to your own companies and think about ways to mitigate your impact, reduce your footprint, and start on your own sustainability journey or continue. So thank you again. It's really been a pleasure, and I look forward to our Q&A.